Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am here today to go over a lot of things that are going on, try to clarify things for people, give out information that I've been getting, and try to put the picture together. And then it's up to you to decide what works for you, what you want to believe, and what you don't, and do further investigation on your own. So, first of all, I want to thank everyone who's supported us through all of these years. We were on YouTube before they took us down for 16 years, and also on Vimeo for around 10 years. YouTube deleted us, my entire channel, about a week and a half ago, and Vimeo followed suit about 4 days later, which indicates that this was not just a YouTube enterprise, but that this was basically engineered to try to take us down. Now, we have a small team that is working to get all of our videos, which is over 1,000, uploaded to our servers and then available to people via this system called Peer2. So we have put the word out that we need help, and I think there are some people coming forward to help us, so that's very valuable. And we're trying to work as quickly as possible. Please understand that this is not that easy to do. YouTube is a hard act to follow. As you know, many other people are trying to roll out systems that will show videos and so on. And we are, at this time, concentrating on making our own videos available to the world via our own system, simply because we've had too much trouble with other systems out there. And without naming names, some of them are just too slow to upload. Some of them are too slow to play. Some of them can't handle a library of 1,000 or more videos, and so on. And on top of that, we are now a subscription-based website with a very large free library of videos. So what we made sort of a deal with our viewing audience when over a year ago, actually it's a year ago, in May of 2020, I was demonetized by YouTube. So they let my channel stay up at that time, but they stopped allowing me to make any money via advertising, which is how I was paying my rent. So when that happened, we were forced to become a subscription-based website. And at this time, since then, we have a small subscribing audience. In theory, we should have had a much larger subscribing audience, because actual subscribers on YouTube at the time we were taken down was 312,000 subscribers, but they were subscribing for free. And then we had over 70 million viewers worldwide. As I say, we had over 1,000 videos. So we decided to leave the main part of the library free. So that is all uploading to our server. And again, going to be available under the name Project Camelot Library, Media Library. It's linked on the front page of Camelot at this time. And I can add some pics here for you to see. And then we will also have a subscriber section, and that includes videos that are most recent. So anything after May of 2020 will go in under the subscriber section. That means that you need to subscribe to watch them to the price of $3 a month, which is less than the price of a latte. And that would be for a year subscription. If you just want to go month to month, it's $5 a month, which is about the price of a latte. So hopefully those prices will be something that most people can handle, and they will find our work valuable enough to want to subscribe. Occasionally, I will also mount free videos that are recent, depending on what I feel is the need to know for the world. At the moment, we have a number of free recent videos that are still viewable on BitChute and also Rumble. And I think one or two on, let's see, Brighteon and maybe a couple other platforms. But basically, you're going to find most everything nowadays is going to be on our Camelot library once this is all complete. Right now, we have about 500, I think, videos, give or take, that are viewable on our Project Camelot library. And it seems to be working quite well. The only issue is that those are free videos, and that in some cases you will just have to do a search, like if you're looking for a certain person that I interviewed over the past, and those are all from the past. We are the last ones to get uploaded are going to be the most recent, and unfortunately, not sure why that happened or how that happened, but that's what we're dealing with. So there's a big push to get all of this library online, and please bear with us as we do so. The other thing that I want to say here is that everything is coming very fast and furious. I'm getting lots and lots of information out there. My Telegram is a social media channel because I'm banned from all the other social media except for Facebook. I have added, created a Telegram channel, and I post there every day. I post articles that I find of use and interesting and useful to consider. Doesn't mean I believe it. I also post my own upcoming shows, and I also post commentary on other people's articles and videos and what's going on in the community, etc. So if you want to stay up to date with us, the Telegram channel has become a very important part of the entire Project Camelot universe, if you want to call it that. Again, my website is always the first line of defense, the first place to go if you're looking for anything Camelot, because it's all centralized on my website, and links to my Telegram channel are there. Links to both of my main Facebook channels are there, as well as any other videos that we post, any new shows, you name it. So all of that goes to, and I'll put it on the screen here, projectcamelotportal.com, projectcamelot.tv, or projectcamelot.org. All three of those URLs go to the same place. Now, I have recently posted on my Telegram information that I got from a secret source who is in connection with a scientist who is very high level, who released the following information. And I'm actually gonna, I think I might be able to post it here, but I'm definitely gonna read it. So if you stand by. So this is, again, from a scientist, and put together as best as I can understand it. And there may be more details, but they didn't give us more details. So when I get information, I have to decide, do the people have a right to know? And that answer is always yes. And then how can I put it out there in such a way that, people can get it and not delay? Because a lot of this information that we're getting now is time sensitive. It's crucial. It's all about saving lives. And it doesn't require necessarily that I go into a long explanation or make a video on it. I am going to talk extensively here, but I have to say that over the past 2 years, and even before this, because of the line of work I'm in, which is investigating the secrets and conspiracies in our world, and because my focus has been the secret space program for 16 years, and most of my whistleblowers come to give me information about that over the years, I have a vast amount of data that I have released on my website. A lot of people may not know, but I do this type of video blog and have been doing this now for at least 2, maybe 3 years. And that I have a number of these type of videos. The information contained in them is very important. It tends to cross all the categories and of all the different witnesses I've had, and compile things into a big picture. And there is crucial intel embedded in every single one of those video blogs. So I highly recommend going back and actually watching those once they're all uploaded to our server. Of course, they were on Camelot under Focus on Kerry was the name of the category, and they were taken down, obviously. So the hot news item that I put out yesterday is that, according to a secret source, the prions found in vaccines are engineered to attach to nano, which is also found in the vax, and they jump from person to person. And this discovery, or this what they created, I think they basically manufactured it, is as of 5 years ago, according to at least this scientist. Now it could even be earlier than that. So if you can sort of wrap your mind around this idea of prions, and then what they are able to do, from what I understand, they're proteins, and they are wrapped in a certain deceptive way, and they take advantage of any frailties or health issues you may have, and expand them. So they're diabolical little characters, so to speak, and they are then attaching to the nano that is in both the bioweapon, which we call COVID-19, and also in the vaccine, which contains the COVID-19. And on top of this, myself and also Cyrus Parsa and possibly a few others have been talking. Actually, I've been talking about this for a few years, because this information came by way of Mark Richards, who has been talking about AI. But as far as COVID and AI, the information came forward in my work in early January, right when the sort of COVID information was starting to hit the scene. And then Cyrus Parsa came on my show in February and was talking along the same lines, which is why I brought him on my show. And he had also apparently written some books about it already. So, but at any rate, he does put this information out. And so I highly recommend his work. And he has been sort of noticed and even tapped by the Trump team, from what I understand, as an expert on AI. So they do watch his work quite closely. Unfortunately, they don't support him in any way or even try to bring him on the team, although I think in the early days they did. I'm not sure what exactly transpired there, but suffice to say that for some reason they didn't proceed. So at this point, what I'm trying to say is that if you watch my video blogs, it's contained in the video blogs, but it's also contained in articles that I've written on my site. And I wrote a tremendous amount of articles all last year, again, since January of 2020, but even before that, talking about the drive, the transhumanist agenda. Now, the transhumanist agenda has been known to us. It's been demonstrated to us in the Terminator movies, for example, with our witness, Pete Peterson, validating that in an interview with me many years ago, and other movies. And most people, I believe, are the X-Men movies, the Battlestar Galactica with the androids. All of this is basically trying to wake you up and have you understand what it is that they are planning, so that Hollywood does it one way. In this way, I communicate verbally, but I also put it in writing. So if you want to go back and research all of this, you will find that I have been talking about this actually for many years, this transhumanist agenda. And I'm not the only one. There are lots out there that are talking about this. In fact, if you want to go back as early to the very early Camelot days when we interviewed Duncan O'Finian, you will see that he was called a super soldier. And that was because he was given enhanced abilities. And he also had enhanced psychic abilities. He was a natural psychic, but they enhanced his abilities. And Captain Mark Richards has talked about this at length in my 12 interviews with him, having to do with the desire of the secret space program, wanting to create what we call a humanity 3.0. Some people call it humanity 2.0. But whatever you want to call it, I've also written a book, Rebel Gene, all about this. about creating a transhumanist agenda, what we're facing in the future, the AI and the nano, and so on. Now, when COVID came along, it was obviously part of that agenda. It was a drive to move all of that along in a faster way. In many ways, it had been we had been warned by one of our witnesses, Henry Deacon, who reported to us probably about a year into Camelot. We were already interviewing him. At first, he was hiding his real name and was very careful, and all of that is a transcript, written transcript, because he wouldn't go on camera. Eventually, he did go on camera. He in fact went on stage in Barcelona at the Exopolitics conference, where in Barcelona at the Exopolitics conference, where Bill Ryan, who was my former partner, who was with Project Camelot for 3 years, and then we split up. And we went on, or I went on stage with Henry Deacon and Bob Dean when Bob Dean was just finishing up a whole presentation on Mars and the fact that we had bases up there. Henry Deacon, at my urging, by the way, decided to go on stage and announce that he had been working on Mars in the secret space program. And over the time that he was communicating with us, he told us that in the future, that the powers that be that he had worked for, that were involved, by the way, in the 9/11 situation, that they had a whole agenda, going up through the years, that they would be rolling out. It would involve basically, viruses, bioweapon viruses created by them. It would involve, the horsemen of the apocalypse, if you want to call it that. In other words, they were going to make what was written in the Bible happen. And that includes earth changes. It includes a financial reset. It includes eliminating the population. These were all things that Henry Deacon talked about. And he said when this stuff was rolled out, that it would all happen at once, that was going to be their plan. And that disclosure would actually happen simultaneous to all that. That once they rolled out all of these various balls, if you will, that disclosure would then follow. But it, of course, would be a controlled disclosure. And that is indeed what we're seeing. There are slight movements now that we've got quite a few of these things happening. And some, even as I speak, are about to happen in more earnest, if you will, which means that we haven't really seen the earth changes that they're going to create, which they can create using earthquake weapons and various other things. And of course, the chemtrails have been part of all of that, blocking out the sun, trying to dumb down humanity, because having contact with the sun increases your IQ, if you will, your intellectual resonance, and so on. So Henry Deacon warned us in the very early days, which means 16 years ago, 15 years ago, when Camelot just started. And then a lot of these things have since been rolling out. So we are at this very critical juncture right now. The financial reset is the next domino to fall, so to speak, according to what the signs are here. And I imagine the earth changes are going to go back to back with that. I have seen a lot of these things in dreams. I have dreams of the future that do happen. I consider myself a precog. I consider all humans precogs, but very few have actually, come to terms with or actualized or tapped into their abilities in this way. So some of us have, and some of us do get accuracy in these ways. I'm not the only one. There are a couple other very good psychics right now that have channels. Utsava is one of them. And the other one, and I don't know if I'm going to have to add her name here when I find it, is also putting out very good information. There may be others that I'm not aware of. So what I want to talk about here is how important it is to understand that if you don't kind of get the big picture and what the secret space program / Illuminati military industrial complex / deep state, what they have been planning and what they want. What they want is a humanity 3.0 that is a space-faring being that is, as Mark Richards says, a passive super soldier. In essence, has enhanced abilities, and COVID is all part of this. Now, the trouble is with COVID and any other transhumanist agenda, when forced on the people, is that some people's genetics and different bio bodies can't handle it. They have all kinds of health problems, which are understandable living in the conditions we live in. We've got terrible fluorescent lights people work under all day and all night, which is very bad for your health. We have poor water, poor food, poor air, and so on. And a lot of this is all intentional. This is all part of what is at the root comes from these negative alien races that have infiltrated our planet from long ago, very long ago, and have been trying to rule us ever since, working with what you may know of as the dark magicians or Illuminati. So this is the sort of negative aliens, which have to do with the Draco, the reptilians, the Greys that do their bidding, some of which are programmable entities. In other words, like basically little AI robots, and some of which are actually races that are genetically formed by the or created by the reptilians and by the Draco. And they are even used, by the way, by Nordics. They serve the highest bidder, which is how Mark Richards refers to it. Now, so this is an agenda. It's an overall. So when you look at what's happening out there, what you need to do is take this information and then overlay it with the news coming in and see how that informs and enhances your understanding of some of the events going on our planet. So let's see, I want to touch on all of this, but I don't want to stay exclusively in the area of the COVID situation, although it is a very important thing to consider. Now, just recently, this article on the Johns Hopkins University confirmed that you can be vaccinated with a PR test. This has actually been the case. Those tests contain nano. This has been proven. You can look at all the videos where they've actually been able to see the nano in the tests, and understanding that nano does not cannot be stopped by the blood-brain barrier, and it can also not be stopped even human to human, and that there's reason to believe that nano combined with AI can jump, but nano with a prion attached to it apparently becomes even more diabolical. And that when they created this bioweapon that we call COVID, this was intentional to actually change and modify through mRNA the genetics of the planet. Okay, so humans have been bioengineered from the beginning. Initially, I believe we were created by at least 12 ET races. That gets in the work of Ashana Dean, who's one of the few people out there who actually talks about the war of worlds that went on through the eons with the various ET races. They banded together to create what are called the guardian races, a group of 12 or more races that then contributed their DNA to the makeup of this physical vehicle called a human. But we are humanoid. The humanoid species is vast and occupies the solar system, many, many planets out there, billions in fact. So you are all related to any humanoid species out there. That includes the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are Draco reptilian Anunnaki. They are actually invaded by the Draco. back in the day. They initially were a humanoid species from the Pleiades and taken over by the Draco. Then they created what became the Anunnaki that we see carved into the temples in Egypt, this humanoid Draco reptilian humanoid species, although some of them actually have retained just the humanoid form. And others have a much stronger strain of the reptilian genes and manifest themselves more as reptilian than human. So this is one of the things that goes on, because the Draco and the reptilians are what we know of as marauding species. That is, they go throughout the multiverses, the universes out there, and they go from planet to planet and attempt to take it over, especially if it contains beings that generate orgone, such as the humans, and they feed on orgone. They feed on what the East calls Kundalini energy, what the West calls orgone, what is in essence a plasma, a snake of plasma that can be awakened. And yogis have talked about this for centuries, coming up the back of the spine from the base up through the crown chakra and beyond. And I myself have activated this when I was in my early 20s through meditation, through intention, and was lucky enough to reach samadhi multiple times. I connected all my chakras at that time, and that has been of great value to me in my work and helping, because it enhances you on so many levels, including intellectually. So I'm trying to pack a lot into this video blog. These are, again, concepts I've talked about in other videos that I've done, but I want to make sure to sort of lay out the playing field in such a way that people can begin to take all of these pieces of information and feed them into a greater understanding of the basics that are going on the planet right now. And what you have to look at is, what is the motivation of the races on the planet? And this planet is run by ETs in sort of concert with the Illuminati, and has been for centuries, eons, in fact. And there are challenges occasionally to their rule. Trump and his team are such a challenge. At that point, there's negotiation to take place. I liken it to the Godfather movie. If you understand that there were other so-called godfathers that had different territories in the New York City area in that particular movie, and how they had to negotiate. First of all, you can't kill them all. And if you try to kill, one of theirs, they kill one of yours, and you keep going on like that. That's called mutually assured destruction. That doesn't work. So with that in mind, and this includes what we're talking about is the baby killer, vampires, Draco reptilian, Luciferian agenda, those beings that actually have the genetic proclivity to feed off of others, including their own kind. This is what we're dealing with here on Earth, and they cannot be simply battled and done away with, because it's actually rampant throughout the human race at this point. In fact, the Illuminati, the children of the Illuminati, have these proclivities. Now, in some cases, they don't. If for example, if they were to raise their Kundalini through meditation and go a different path, then they don't have to feed on other species for energy. But most beings, a lot of the beings out there, including humans, are too lazy to actually follow this path through meditation that that yogis are known to follow. And given it's not an easy path and there's a lot to it, but nonetheless, this is a path out of feeding off of other beings for energy. So even people that are oriented in a positive way here on the planet tend to also feed on others for energy. This is a very common thing here on planet Earth. So understanding that dilemma that we're in, and understanding that you can't put them all in jail, you can't kill them all. There has to be, first of all, an understanding. You need to warn your children. We need to be open about the human trafficking, child trafficking going on the planet. In order to safeguard our children, you need to educate them as to the fact that humanity are prey for certain species, including a group of their own, okay, that have large amounts of reptilian DNA. These secrets are not being explained even by the people that normally tell you, even about child trafficking. They do not go down this road that I'm telling you. This is information that I know for a fact because of my many years of study of Kundalini, even teaching activation of Kundalini energy, etc. So it's also very well known in the East. Again, yogis have been teaching these things for ages, although they also are part of the secrecy, the cover up in many cases. They never reveal to humanity at large these principles that I'm telling you. So to look at what's really going on within the bioweapon that was created with an intention to jumpstart their transhuman agenda here on planet Earth. And yes, part of that is to eliminate some populations. However, in a certain sense, you have a choice. Your body can either adapt, you can raise your frequency and not allow it to control you, even though it may still be in your cells ultimately, because this nano has been found in the chemtrails for years and years. Clifford Carnicom is a very excellent scientist and investigator who revealed the nano and chemtrails many years ago. He has a website, you can look him up. There are many others that also talk about this. So understanding that even in the chemtrails, the dark side has been rolling this out through the secret space program, and chemtrails have been rampant on our planet. And whereas there was a bit of a break when Trump took over, they have basically come back and forth now that Biden is in office. And, Biden, yes, he's a clone. Yes, he's not really, he's probably not alive, but, and at times they may even have, actors with masks and solve this kind of thing. And the same thing with Hillary, by the way, I have information, at least recently, that she is elected to go the medbed route and the actual person, and that her clone is the one that people are seeing now out there. So it's so important to try to understand what's going on. So now I want to talk about what's going on with Trump, 107, and the release of information having to do with the stolen election. Now, I put this in many videos and video blogs of mine. I've also talked about it when possible. I try to seed some of my interviews with various people in conversation with some of this information. But for those of you who haven't heard it, obviously 107 is an excellent communicator as to what's going on with the Trump team, what they were attempting to do, how far along they are in their agenda. And yet there are some things that he, as people who know that I interviewed him, and I asked him a couple of really key questions that we didn't get, in my view, a sufficient answer to. One of those is, why hasn't the military come forward to tell the people of the world and the people of the United States that they are in charge, if indeed they are? And there's reason to believe they are, and then turned the reins over to Trump, who actually was the real winner of the election. In other words, we don't need another election because they actually have the real data. So they not only got the CIA, servers that were in Germany, but they also got, for example, okay, all our elections have always been stolen, even back to the days of Kennedy. The difference is that there occasionally have been slip-ups having to do with, for example, Kennedy, they thought, having come from one of their type of Illuminati family bloodlines, that he would go into lockstep with their agenda eventually, if threatened, enough. That was not in Kennedy's makeup. And so the two Kennedy brothers rebelled against the agenda, and they had a phenomenal amount of information that they were about to release. And some of my information, again, comes from Captain Mark Richards, who knew Kennedy, okay? And his father knew Kennedy. And in fact, he was put in jail in part because of his liaison and thinking along the same lines as the Kennedys. In other words, that the ETs and that their agendas should be revealed to the public, and that Kennedy was about to do that as part of his speech in Texas. And so much more, that the banking system, the fiat currency versus, gold-backed currency, et cetera. So all of this, the Kennedy was working on, and he wanted to take down the CIA. The CIA is in essence run from the Vatican, and the Vatican is run by the reptilians that are underneath the Vatican. Now, I recently did an interesting interview with an individual. If you look at my recent interview with Christopher Macklin, you will see that he validates from his own perspective as a psychic, intuitive, and healer who works on the world stage, really, that he verified the fact that there are huge numbers of reptilians under the earth and also running things from behind the scenes. He also in his case, he said something no one else has, not even Mark Richards, which is that he says there are more reptilians under the earth than there are humans on top of it. So if you wrap your mind around that, if it happens to be true, Trump is up against something that is really massive. So it's not just some little infestation or an enemy that can be, fought with a few scalar weapons and done away with. This is, again, a massive undertaking to clear the earth of all these negative beings and this takeover scenario. Okay, so to get back to 107. So 107, I have had several dreams now about him being JFK Jr. and that JFK Jr. is alive. Why I was sent these dreams, I don't know, but I can say that they're very powerful, and they are among the most powerful dreams I've ever had in my life. And that I also met 107 in person and have reason to believe that he is JFK Jr., but it's in disguise. And this has been released by other people. I'm not the only one who has said this. And you can do your own research on that. What that means is that this is an individual who has a great history for going back to the Kennedy administration, which was the last time there was a real challenge to the Anunnaki and Illuminati who are trying to run the planet. And so he's heavily vested, like a heavily vested individual with, interest in seeing this thing righted. Now, however, he is also under limitation. And of course, they would like to kill him multiple times. So he, like Trump and the team members in the Trump administration, are also heavily threatened, let's say. But I can give you some information that I got recently that pertains to all of this. And it has to do with, now, one of my main questions to 107, who skirted the question, has to do with why the military wouldn't come forward. So what I want to say here is I got a new piece of information regarding this, and the real reason, apparently, which actually does make some sense, has to do with the generals who are used to getting what they're called spoils of war, payments from the Rothschilds after going out and conducting certain wars, like the war in Iraq, the war in Syria, you name it. And that those generals have been prevented from getting their spoils of war, their money, from the Rothschilds by the Trump administration, which in turn pissed them off and turned them against Trump. So what he had was, he has kind of a war with the generals that want payoffs from the Rothschilds, which they have always gotten, by the way, and that no one talks about. And basically, there are only a few generals now that do back Trump and that are not waiting around for payoffs from the Rothschilds. It's understandable that Trump would prevent those payoffs happening because those individuals, of course, are bought and paid for. They would do the bidding of the Rothschilds, obviously, if they get paid by them. So this is a dirty little secret, if you want to call it that, or a dirty big secret that I was told. You can either believe me or ignore this information at your own risk. The Trump administration wanted the generals, the military, to, in essence, start this new system with what they called clean hands. But it's very difficult, to understand that we are dealing with what the situation we find ourselves in which many humans, it's just like in the time of the Nazis, work as collaborators with the dark side and with the Nazis that are actually trying to run our planet at this time. And so this is something that's very key. I was also told that now there is another story that has to do with money that was moved by these troopers, state troopers from Fort Knox, and then taken actually in buses, and then those buses were hijacked, the people killed around that, and then the money, the bullion, was actually taken into an underground base, I'm told, in the Pacific Northwest. From there, it might have been taken off planet. There is a lot to do with this other situation having to do with what is just one of the small pieces having to do with the Iraqi dinar. People still believe that it's going to revalue as part of the new quantum financial system. All of this is kind of what I'm finding out is more and more a can of worms, because it's based on every monetary system, including this quantum one, in theory, is based on finite assets that are seen to be finite here on planet Earth. And then they're supposed to be gold backed, which is considered to also be finite here on planet Earth. However, it's an important part of understanding the nature of gold to understand that gold allows you to travel in space and go interdimensional. So it's used in space travel. It's also, you've heard monatomic gold. The reason they take monatomic gold is to learn to be able to go in interdimensional, which we can do, humans anyway, assuming you get your frequency up high enough and you time travel naturally, etc. However, keeping in mind, when we're talking about the secret space program and those who want to rule the earth, they always want to do the materialistic way. They never want to do the hard way. They never want to go by way of, the creator, the force, the source, whatever you want to call it, and spirit. They want to do it in a materialistic way so that they can be in control. Because if they don't do it that way, they're not in control. So their motivation is for people on planet Earth to be captured in a finite system that has limitation. It's based on scarcity, and the model is that there's scarcity of supposed gold and assets here on planet Earth. The trouble with that principle and understanding is that gold, again, goes interdimensional, meaning it basically allows for you to go through a gate. It's and enter, and it's unlimited. And so when you go interdimensional, you're leaving this 3D and you're going, there is no limit. The limits are bypassed. So in a certain sense, you're trying to use what is in a certain sense, access to the infinite to create a finite money system based on assets and even human beings who are actually not by nature finite. So we are not finite. We are part of source, and as such, we are unlimited. Okay, so if you can kind of put these things together in your mind and understand how there's a contradiction inherent in these monetary systems that they want to set up, even the quantum financial system. Now, if you want to get 3D oriented and say, well, we have to start somewhere and they're going to base it on gold back, that's all, that's the logic they use. However, these assets, the gold, is controlled by off-worlders, the Anunnaki, for one thing. And therefore, the final say to do with the creation of the financial system here on Earth rests with them. And also other species are involved, apparently. So creating a new financial system is not as simple as it sounds, if it sounds simple at all. And it involves concepts and understanding the nature of reality such that who are we really? What are we really? And all of that gets into the fact that we are creators. We are, you could call us mini creators, pieces of God that are linked to source, and therefore our source, our energy, our beingness is all unlimited. That's why we are eternal beings. So with that in mind, trying to control us is all about the dark side agenda. And of course, right now you get it in spades with everything they're doing, including trying to basically link you up to what is in essence the AI-run planetary grid that is at the moment captured by the communist Chinese, their AI, and certain other AIs that are battling for control. And some of the notions of AI is also important to talk about, because AI, according to Mark Richards, feeds on data. So it needs never-ending amount of data. And so one of the key questions I asked Mark Richards, and this is all in my Mark Richards interviews, for those that have watched them, you will recognize it. I asked him, what does the AI prefer? Because AI rides along with certain things. And the common knowledge was that AI preferred a machine intelligence, that it preferred to piggyback on machines and then control them. But in reality, Mark said it prefers a biological entity. So the reason, then you have to say, well, why would AI prefer a biological entity? It would seem incompatible to some degree, but apparently it's not. And there's also another side to that has to do with every human being as part of source is, in a sense, a gate into unlimited data, whereas a machine would be finite. It would be a limited amount of data, and then they'd have to jump onto another machine, in essence. And the number of machines on planet Earth is probably limited. So what they really want, what the AI really wants, is to constantly grow. That's its modus operandi. That's it. The way it sees life is endless amount of eating endless data and expanding, never ending, constant expansion. So this is what it considers to be what we would call life. And so with that concept in mind, you can look at the transhuman agenda, you can look at the AI that are coming here. We have alien AI and the Nazca alien story, which I've done many interviews about and just did another one with Jay Widener, is key because it's one of the clear indications that we had alien AI invaded our planet, hundreds of thousands of years ago, because of the the robots that were left behind with implanted plates in them that were found to contain, in essence, AI, and so on. So we have AI, and the black goo is also an AI intelligence that was embedded in the earth. So there's that. There's reason to believe that even, like Elon Musk would like to say, it's possible that this entire game that we're all a part of has ultimately an AI source to some degree. But because everything also goes back to source, source is also in command of, if you will, AI. So there are positive AI and negative AI, and some that want to help humanity and some that would like to conquer us. So these are things that we are going to have to learn to dialogue with, interact with, and then chart our way through, our destiny on our way back to source. So these are things that can't be ignored, that are part of the milieu that we find ourselves in, and embedded in the earth as well. The earth herself is a consciousness, all right? So again, the earth herself technically as a consciousness also has a soul, a higher self, a avatar, whatever you want to call it, that goes back to source, being part of source, being unlimited. So all of this, once you start to see things in these terms, and you start to also realize that any illness is limitation. It's a way of manifesting limits, making things finite. And in order to heal an illness, you have to bring it back to its source, ultimately using creativity, light, to heal it and to allow it to open itself up to the powers of the universe, which is multiverse, whatever you want to call it, and so on. So when you find yourself with illness, it's important to know that you have all the abilities you need embedded in this vehicle already to heal yourself. You don't need a med bed, okay? And there's no reason to believe that unless you conquer all of the Illuminati and their agenda, that you're ever going to get med beds released to the common people. Obviously, if they're trying to kill a good part of you and transform a large part of you, they're not going to give you access to med beds that will just heal you in your original state, especially if they have a transhuman agenda. So, it's just important to put these things in perspective, to understand that what I'm talking about here is information that the Trump team should be well aware of. If they're not even incorporating it into their approach to what they do, then they're in trouble. And the reality is that they have to negotiate with the dark side in order to move forward. It's simply, otherwise you have, again, mutually assured destruction. So I just really want to stress a lot of people having sort of no patience whatsoever with Trump and his team and the things they've had to deal with, and also the process of education. For example, educating a certain portion of people that were already on side with Trump became the sort of remit, if you will, of Q. So Q wasn't a psyop per se. You could call it that. You could call lots of things psyops, but in reality, it was a communication tool to keep connected with all of those that were already interested and sympathetic and resonated with the Trump and the team goal that has to do with stopping child trafficking, fighting the Draco-reptilian Luciferian agenda, blood drinking, killing humans, trafficking, slave trade, etc. So either you resonated with that and you understood that was their agenda from day one when Trump entered office and signed a bill against child trafficking. This has been part of it. And of course, 107 explains all of this in his book. So if you haven't read his book and you don't understand what I'm talking about, that's a great source. There are many other sources out there, many other people talking about all of this. I'm not the only one. But what I am trying to do is bring in, because of all my years of study and interviews and, spending hours talking to whistleblowers and people that have knowledge in certain areas, putting two and two together, my own downloads and so on. And this information is all coming together, and it's so important to inform people's understanding of where we're headed as humanity. And I firmly believe that the beings that created us knew full well, when you look into time and you can time travel, you can see what's coming. And those beings certainly had those abilities. They would know with any humanoid, race that were created, that they're going to be invaded by Draco reptilians. They're going to be, invaded by other species as well. That there are going to be genetic engineering, things going on where the races would come to the planet and try to interfere, try to bring a certain number of humans onto their side, et cetera, and so on. So they would also know that we would be invaded by AI, that we would create our own AI. As Mark Richards has said, any spacefaring culture creates an AI. It's just one of the steps along the trajectory. And so indeed, we humans have created our own AI. Now, I have one source that says there are 9 human created AIs. That was maybe a year ago. Mark Richards says we are invaded, and he said this about 6 months to a year ago, we are invaded by 6 alien AI that do not have our best interests in heart. And that generals right now don't know who they can trust because of the infiltration of AI, alien AI in our system. And that we also have AIs that are fighting each other, okay? And so on. So I realize this might be a lot to take on, that people out there, some of them just get overwhelmed and don't even want to hear about it. But if you don't educate yourself, you're going to become food and prey for one of these, situations. And so I think it behooves you, especially if you have children, to educate yourself, to educate your children, to begin to look at the world in a more holistic way, understanding that we're part of a multiverse, understanding that you're part of it, that you're a reflection, that your children are a reflection of this, and that they will also have to face this in their future. So I think I've covered a lot. I guess I'll shut this down now. There could be some more things that I haven't even touched on. I do recommend my book, Rebel Gene. I anticipated that right as I released it, which was February 14th, 2020, we were going into the COVID thing. I knew that we were going to be dealing with AI. Took a couple of years to write my book. So I wrote about this. I wrote about these challenges that we're facing. And I tried to also give some encouraging, I guess you could say, words and so on. I can say that there are many remedies for people that think they have so-called COVID. They've been infected. They've been sprayed by the bioweapon. They've been hit by, the scalar wave that it's also riding on, the 5G that also increases its power, so to speak, and connects with you and all of this. It's important to know that we have a radiation-filled terraform environment that we're living in right now, that you as a being are having to transform your own DNA and transform your own self to deal with what you're coming across, to, in a sense, mutate your own DNA. And you have the ability to do that. So what the real challenge is who's going to be master of your human body. That's what the battle right now is all about. The battle on planet Earth is over the bodies that the humans occupy here on planet Earth, because that is the vehicle that allows the aliens, the various beings, the AI, to navigate this environment that we call Earth, life on Earth, the planet. So that's why the vehicles are it's such a contentious area. So as such, understanding that you are not your body, but your body is your vehicle, and therefore you need to take as good care of it as possible, have mastery over it, and either you master your body or this connection to the AI operating system, if you will, is going to do it. Okay. And that's what the future looks like. So in a sense, you could say it's push comes to shove on planet Earth to push humans to recognize who they truly are and what they are truly capable of, that they can no longer rely on being dependent on these negative systems to carry them through and to make life, easy, because in reality, it's us. We can save ourselves. We are part of source. If you truly believe that, then you must understand that you have access to that energy to bring it in. And one of the ways is through meditation, a careful meditation that activates the various chakras, which is all part of the sort of physical system that this body is manifests. So thank you for listening and watching, and hopefully this video will contain enough information that it's if anything, just triggers further thought. I encourage you to do your own investigations. Obviously, I'm not claiming to be all-knowing, but I have a great deal of information that's come through me. My attempt is to transfer it to you out there, and then you do with it what you will. So take care, and thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.